Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 23. We are attacking Braga this turn, and it looks like Utgard is going to waste no time in attacking us. So I guess they figure, we're not going to agree to a non-aggression pact, then they're just going to roll right in on us. That's fine. Like I said, we do have some answers here, and they're also going to be quite spread out, so we're going to be able to raid decently effectively. Whether or not we're going to be able to stop like a main Doom stack from them, if they just run at our capital, we'll see. But they don't really have such a Doom stack in our area just yet. And then speaking of, finish research in Alteration 3, headed on to 4. This could become very relevant. And then it looks like Vedheim is attacking Utgard in Xibalba. And they've brought a bunch of their Sacreds and quite a few crossbowmen, and then a few mages. So they found illusionists somewhere, and they're summoning air elementals, but I believe that this is the monolith. Yeah. Monoliths definitely size 6, cannot be trampled. They're making some bugs. Let's see, the monolith is casting Mind Burn, which isn't going to be super relevant. And then it looks like there's, some smiting going on. The bugs are actually kind of dangerous, because they have the armor negating damage. And it looks like the monolith has not managed to make itself ethereal just yet. The monolith is actually taking a lot of damage here. Interesting. So it looks like the bugs are actually only dealing poison damage, and you can't poison a monolith, so they're not dealing any damage, but it's actually the air elemental who, while they can't trample, are dealing a good amount of lightning damage. This guy does have just a little bit of shock resistance. Definitely has the paths to be able to give itself shock resistance. It's not in its own dominion, so it can't be blessed, right? And yeah, that was actually way easier than I expected for Vedheim. Gotta be honest, when I first saw that, I didn't think it was going to work out for Vedheim. But there you go, air elementals, extremely dangerous. So this monolith is dead now. And that is really relevant because a good chunk of Utgard's bless is incarnate, right? So it's only active while the pretender is on the map. Now, hopefully for Utgard's sake, they have a decent number of priests. I do think at least some of their mages are also priests, so they've probably recruited some priests just by recruiting mages, so they can call their god back in. But at least for the short term, this means that Utgard is a lot less scary and a lot more vulnerable. So the fact that they just attacked us actually kind of works out for us. So that looks like, oh, interesting. Okay, I think what happened, because this almost looks like it's in the magic phase, but I think Vedheim hid a chunk of their units, right? A chunk of their army. So that army was hiding on top of Xibalba, and then they attacked. And then I believe if you're already in the province and you attack, that attack happens before, movement phase battles, right? So now there's a normal phase move from Utgard onto Xibalba. And this is probably right to protect their monolith. This is pretty slick from Vedheim. And they've also moved some of these mercenaries in, who I'm not super familiar with, but they seem kind of ridiculous. They are sacred, so they get the benefit of your bless, although it looks like they just also regenerate on their own, which isn't particularly relevant with their low hit points, but really good stats, really high experience. A built-in, really nasty weapon. As mercenaries go, these guys are kind of crazy, though. They don't have cold resistance, so they don't like being next to these Rimvedi. So we can take a look. Let's see if Utgard has managed to get... Yeah, they've gotten some blesses off. So this is their bless now. Shock resistance, magic weapons, still relevant, but a heck of a lot less scary. And I think they're in big trouble because that's pretty much all they have, right? As a group of their, hell-blessed, formerly hell-blessed sacreds. Whereas, Vedheim actually has a full army. They far outnumber them. And in a lot of ways, the Rimvedi, or just the Vedi in general, the size 1 units are really good at taking out giants, right? Because they have really high attack density to the giants, really low attack density. The Vedi are a bit cowardly, so they get hit with some evocations, I think, from Vedheim's side, and some of the crossbowmen rout, although they don't even make it off the battlefield. So that's a huge win for Vedheim, and kind of good news for us, but also kind of not good news for us. We were thinking about maybe also fighting Vedheim, right? So we would have preferred a bloodier battle, but I don't know if I had to choose one or the other and choose Vedheim. So I'm gonna put that in the win column, particularly because, right, here's Utgard attacking us, and again, just Or, okay, they're just pinging us. That's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. This is pretty hostile. I think we'll probably just attack Utgard. Like I said, they they were aggressive in their negotiations, and now they're open to attack. We might fight Vedheim as well, right? It's particularly because we know that Mictlan was at least thinking about going in against Vedheim. Whether or not that actually comes to pass now will be interesting, right? Because Utgard was supposed to be their ally, and like now, is Utgard really going to be able to commit to a major war? Or are they going to have to defend like their territory? And then here's Raga. I'm expecting this is a breakout. Oh yeah, so they definitely have an army left. And like, yeah, we may have bitten off more than we can chew here, because in theory this could come at us. They have a lot of birds. Raga is a mix of like Abyssians and Kalians, and it doesn't looks like it was just our one friend who routed off. But this is pretty serious, right? There's a lot of mundane units in here that are kind of nasty. Like, yeah, the Iceclad are going to be a big deal. And, like, they will like the cold that Atlantis is also going to be pushing. They won't love moving into our territory, luckily. And, like, these archers aren't going to be so effective because we have fairly heavy armor. They do have a group of crossbowmen. And they do have some fairly serious mages here who look like they've communioned up. Although it doesn't look like some of them really even need to be communioned. Like, yeah, they're fairly powerful anyway. No gems on them, and we're not really likely to see any casting, so we're not going to know what the research level is. But, that is an impressive force, absolutely. And this war with Raga and Atlantis is not over yet. And then here's us jumping into that war, perhaps at the wrong time. We'll see. Yeah, there's only a tiny bit of province defense here, so this is going to work out for us. So we are able to take out one province defense, although we'll probably have to withdraw these raiders because we'll see, where Raga goes. But that force that they have definitely could beat our raiding force, and maybe it could beat our main army as well. An unexpected event in Phlegra. The Burning Mountains rumbling. I'm sure this is fine and that it won't explode and a bunch of monstrosities will come out. Everybody remain calm. And then we find a troll lair. Get a few gems, I'll take it. Misfortune 3, any positive event is a win. And then we get discovered. We were trying to jump on top of one of Marignon's forts, so we got patrolled out. Looks like they've been recruiting some, what are these, Tritons? No, mermen, who are quite awful, but they can go underwater, and that's not something I think Marignon can normally easily do, so it looks like they're interested in some lake, or they just feel like these guys are decent enough patrollers, and they certainly did the job here in getting rid of our scout, and doesn't really tell us a whole lot, about really anything about Marignon other than they have some cheap patrollers. So that's unfortunate we lose that scout. And then Midgard, it has been vanquished, and I will catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we did about it. This is a review style. So the diplomacy won't be as fresh in my mind, but without further ado, let's talk it through. So Raga has escaped, which could be a problem for us since we did just attack Raga. That said, they're probably going to be focused a lot more on Atlantis, but there's a pretty significant army here, so we're definitely going to want to keep an eye on where it's going. Also, Atlantis has done a pretty good job of raiding deeply, so, we're not really going to pick up a whole lot. We could still maybe pick up this fortification, but first, we're interested in this throne, which is really the main thing that we're doing here. So our army has been gathered and is moving into this province. We actually don't have Flaming Arrows scripted, though we do have it researched, so hopefully that'll get updated, because that's definitely an oversight. We're pretty much relying mostly on crossbowmen, good amount of Mouflon, a few other things. Do have lesser fire elementals queued, which are not great. Not expecting to get attacked in this location by Utgard. I know we don't have a non-aggression pact with them. But they definitely look interested in Xibalba, right? So I'm expecting some combat here between Vedheim and Utgard, so we'll hopefully keep an eye on that. We're trying to get some more scouts deeper into Utgard's territory to get a sense of is this the only stack of large sacreds that we're seeing here, or are there other large stacks of sacreds? And that's the majority of our movements. We're going to hold these raiders in place to maybe catch any counter raiding, though it doesn't look like there's a whole lot in this fort from Raga. We are attacking these barbarians, mostly crossbows and Mouflon. The Mouflon can probably do it on their own, but we have the crossbows nearby, so might as well send them out. A lot of troop recruitment this turn, I imagine. Yeah, mostly Mouflon in the capital. Also switching over to our Archons rather than the Cyclops Smiths, which, we've talked about. They haven't done great for us. And then in the other locations, probably all crossbowmen. Okay, no, we're actually getting some infantry now. I go back and forth on this throughout the game. So yeah, we'll have to see how these guys do. I do think these guys are, not great bodyguards, but definitely better bodyguards than the crossbows. So, we have a bunch of dudes in robes, and there's lots of, possible flyers out there. So having a few units on guard commander that aren't totally awful will hopefully help. Otherwise, looks like Calum is pretty much done. They do have one fort that's not locked down, but yeah, this is their capital, a large Almish army sitting on top of it, so that doesn't look good. Otherwise, I don't think we've caught anything too exciting. It does look like Ulm is in a pretty decent position. They've managed to lock down 2 thrones. They have a pretty good shape overall, I would say, insofar as we can tell. We are starting to see a little bit about Marignan, who also looks, very roughly a healthy size. We don't actually know a ton about Micklin in terms of how far they extend in some of the other directions. And Vettiheim, perhaps a little on the small side. I don't know if we've actually caught... Yeah, their capital's all the way over here, so maybe just kind of long, right? They've pushed pretty far out into Xibalba. Still plenty of neutral thrones out there, right? Including at least one of the ones, we got patrolled out in this location by a Marinese force, right? So it's not really looking like Utgard is going to be throne rushing, at least, in the immediate future. Now, that said, I don't think there's any fortification here yet, though I imagine Marignan's probably building one and would respond if it got attacked. And this isn't looking like that dangerous of a throne. I think those sacreds from Utgard could probably clean through it pretty quickly. So, I don't want to overstate, the danger has completely disappeared. But particularly if we can lock down this throne, and we are building a fortification on the other throne, so we got 2 more turns for that to come up. So I think, at least in the short term, we're safe from a throne rush from Utgard. Research-wise, let's see, going for Alteration 4, which will give us... it'll give us this stuff. We can cast Swarm with our Pretender, and actually, we do have some independent mages that can cast it. So that'll be more useful for us than it normally would be for Phlegra. Also, Temper Flesh is somewhat important for our Pretender. We can also do a bit of Body Ethereal, not too much. Temper Flesh will also be very useful for our Tyrants later, and then, eventually we want to go deeper into Alteration, but maybe not as much value here as I would have liked. Then we're going up to Construction 4, back and forth. Certainly getting to Construction 6 as soon as possible with Fire Nation is always a concern, but we are expecting to have to fight somebody before then, and Construction Research, until our Tyrants come out, isn't going to be that useful for us as far as combat goes. And then we have more Alteration Research queued after that, and I think that more or less covers turn 23. All right, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 24, and this is a turn that I'm recording in the future. Though enough time has passed, I don't really remember a ton. So we finished research in Alteration 4, headed on to some construction research, which we've discussed. We do find a magic site. Let's see, some air. That's not the end of the world for us, but really do want that earth. But, we have plenty of air mages, so in communions for battle magic, it's going to be pretty useful for us, but our air access is quite shallow outside of battle. And then we actually caught a ton of battles this turn, more than I was expecting. So a lot of them are not ours. Most of them are not ours. So here we have a little Kalian raiding group, just some birds. And, ooh, they ran into, this is Micklin, although he's got a lot of independence, a lot of Bakemono, some of his slaves, some of his sacreds, a lot of jaguars back here. So yeah, definitely these birds are screwed. We'll see if they're set to attack rear. Just kind of curious. Probably. Birds usually are. Yeah, but all sorts of little random groups of garbage units scattered around. Nicely done by Micklin. Those birds don't really drop on anything useful. Yeah, Micklin loses 11 slaves. I think they're okay with that. And this Kalian raiding force is completely destroyed other than the commander. And then poor Raga, they're fighting just about everybody. At this point, I know Raga does sub at some point. I can't remember if that substitution has already occurred. Okay, so it's just a ping, though it looks like it's a ping that's gone wrong. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff here from Utgard. This is that smaller stack of sacreds that we saw, along with quite a bit of province defense and some other stuff. And unfortunately, yeah, the scout not set to retreat. So yeah, it looks like Utgard probably content to just defend there, it looks like. And then this is our battle against the barbarians. So we have some crossbows and some Mouflon against, more barbarians than I would have liked to see. But, it's always more barbarians. Even a few barbarians is more barbarians than you want to see. So yeah, that goes pretty well for us. It looks like we do lose a few crossbowmen, maybe a Mouflon or two. But we don't spend any gems, and we don't take up any mage turns, really trying to get a little better about that. So yeah, we lose 2 Mouflon and 2 Helic crossbows, fairly clean for 44 barbarians. And then we get attacked by Raga in the same location. Not really sure. I guess, they're just going for it. Nope. This is just, maybe they're just trying to reduce income, or upkeep rather, which, scouts do cost upkeep. So, if you're in pretty dire straits, or maybe hoping that your opponents are not setting province defense, I feel like you often see people in dire positions doing this. I myself have occasionally ordered scouts to attack en masse, sort of just as a way to say hello and cut down on upkeep. And lo and behold, here's another scout. We do get to look at a large force from Utgard here, a lot of sacreds, but that's pretty much it. No mage support, and actually less mage support here than there used to be. Though, of course, with scales like they have, it is going to be somewhat difficult for them to put together magic, at least in the short term. I believe they took at least some drain, maybe even drain 3. They have pretty rough scales. Okay, so there's a lot of scouts here from Raga. Some province defense here. This looks like Gath that they're attacking. They're just going after everybody. So yeah, definitely trying to cut down on the upkeep, I suspect. This is probably a real battle, or maybe somebody got patrolled out. I mean, this is Marignon attacking Gath. Okay, no, this looks like a real fight. Small raiding group from Marignon. They've got some flagellants who aren't great. Let's remind ourselves of the bless. Ooh, blood vengeance. Okay, I mean, actually, yeah. Flagellants are very good at dying, taking damage. So that's going to trigger the blood vengeance. So this looks interesting. I don't know. The attack skill maybe for the demons, although I don't think many of them are sacred. Yeah, not really sure. I guess flagellants are somewhat killy, but they don't have great skills, and the precision is definitely for the mages, not for the flagellants. We just saw this province defense. Woodsmen are pretty awful, but there's a lot of range fire, which flagellants don't love. You can see the blood vengeance coming out there. Yeah, flagellants actually do pretty well. Well, I say that. Yeah, wow, this guy's hanging around. Flagellants actually do have very high morale. So, yeah, it doesn't work out for Marignon. I don't know, raiding with flagellants is definitely going to be high attrition, but, not the end of the world, right? 10 gold, they're fairly easy to bring in. But, you're going up against 11 province defense of woodsmen, and it doesn't work out. That's not great. Although, I mean, it's better than losing a Cyclops Smith to, what was it, it's 6 province defense, 10 province defense. Here's another Raga scout against 1 province defense. So, throwing stones in glass houses here. This was Atlantis pinging Raga, and I imagine that this is another scout. So that was actually an Atlantean scout. My mistake. We should probably turn on Team Color Squares. There's a lot of scouts flying around this turn. Yeah, so this is our province, but we're going to hold off a single scout. I think we can handle that. So not as many battles as I actually thought. Raga here just polluting the messages. So here we have an actual battle, a storm in Xibalba by Vedheim. Looks like they've got a mercenary company up front here. Interesting. These guys actually regenerate. Pretty good mercenaries. Although I don't know how expensive they are. Of course, Vedheim is freezing an independent mage. Oh, actually, this looks like another mercenary. So fair enough. Not a lot of mage support other than their 1 lone mercenary, but a lot of their sacreds, some crossbows. This is a somewhat fearsome force, although they're not up against nothing. So we got some, random animals, decent animals, but not great. Yeah, some Banes, whites. And these whites are pretty dangerous, though the Cold War are not going to matter too much to Vedheim. A few other random undead, and then let's see if there's any gems. Yeah, there's 1 earth gem out there, it looks like. So not a ton in the way of mages or gems. Yeah, a lot of crossbow bolts coming in. One of the bats took a bolt, though he survived. But the bats, they don't like archer fire. So it doesn't look like there's a ton of research either. Still pretty early. Some slime coming out from Xibalba. I don't think this is going to go well. It's really just a question of how many casualties that Xibalba manages to deal. Got some banishment coming out from Vedheim, it looks like. They are holding the gap pretty well. It's a shame that they don't really have too much, web. They don't have too much in the way of mage support because, they held up the gap pretty well. I guess they do have these frogs. Yeah, these obsidian darts aren't terrible, so this is actually costing Vettiheim for sure. Pretty much all the mercenaries are dead, but, like, yeah, Vettiheim's sacreds are pretty solid. Just remind ourselves of their bless, undying +8, so some of these Vetti might actually be dead. They'll die at the end of the battle there. Otherwise, doesn't look, yeah, not super relevant, at least for the Vetti. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but in this case, you know, no fire magic, no shock magic that they're up against, air magic, if you will. So yeah, I'd say that goes fairly well for Vettiheim. Yeah, they lose their mercenaries. They lose 17 of the Rim Vetti, which does hurt a little bit, but as far as sacreds go, they're actually not all that expensive. They are cap only though, but yeah, definitely worth taking a capital and, you know, knocking out all this random assorted stuff. That's probably going to be all she wrote for Xibalba. They might have one province. No, it looks like they must have one province left. Or at least one province. And then, wow, we have a lot of unexpected events here. Let's see. Plus Earth Gems, very nice. Let's see. Plus Unrest, not so nice. We lose another 3,000 people. We do get Fire Gems. This is our national event, right? So this is in Phlegra. So our capital is in the process of getting wrecked, but we will get tyrants out of this at some point. I guess some of those people migrated to one of our other provinces, though not all of them. Still, this is better than a bad event. Speaking of a bad event, we lose about the same amount of population to some barbarians, and yeah, we'll see if we're going to have enough defense there. And then let's see, winter has reduced the plague from spreading. So that's cool. We have a plague in our other farmland. I mean, you know, we got Misfortune 3 here, so can't complain too much. This is not too bad. One of our mages got wounded. That's fine. People are getting swindled out of their money, including our government, apparently. We staked a sorcerer, which gives us some death scales. Not great. Another one of our mages gets wounded. And then we're on to independent attacks. So let's take a quick look. This is independents attacking Utgard. They probably also have Misfortune, at least 2, probably 3. A bunch of Vinemen and Vine Ogres who will probably beat this. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, there's an Ivy King back here with Nature Gems. So, yeah, Utgard's going to lose that. Just 6 province defense, it looks like there. Not the end of the world. And this is probably our Barbarian attack, which, yeah, also not the end of the world. Good amount of barbarians. Probably, oh, we have a lot of province defense here. So yeah, and then unfortunately we have a site searcher who is now retreating, so this should work out fine for us. I don't know if it's quite worth all that province defense, but it is always nice when you don't have to commit anything and you can, you know, just defeat the barbarians that are constantly attacking. Our mage does survive, which is probably the most important thing, because that's a cap only. Yeah, I don't know, the independents, they're just fierce this turn, or we just have a lot of scouts. May have over-recruited scouts, to be honest. I don't know. Hard to say. You really, like, in my opinion, it's difficult to have too many scouts. But, you know, with the late age, it's quite easy to get a hold of them, and I tend to play early age, so I was, yeah, very enthusiastic in my scout recruitment. So this is a lot of direwolves here. Definitely going to beat this amount of province defense. So Raga loses a province there, also to independence. And then let's see, finally Utgard is also attacked again. And this is looking like probably work out for them. Yeah, wow. Okay, this is the same spot where they have their sacreds. Just an Earth Gnome and friends, or Earth Elemental and friends, and that works out for Utgard just fine. We do have some patrollers active. This is extra important for late age Phlegra, and I'll catch you guys after the jump. Alright, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Most importantly, we are collapsing more or less everything that we have on top of this throne. We do want to take advantage of Utgard's situation. I know Vettiheim was estimating that there's probably like 3 or 4 turns that we have, while the Gam Herdings are vulnerable. But yeah, I think it might actually be difficult to knock out Utgard, right? They're hiding some of their Gam Herdings inside of a fort, and I imagine most of the other ones are headed home. So while we do plan on pushing into Utgard's territory, we also want to pick up thrones, and I think, you know, if we leave this throne any longer, Atlantis will likely grab it. We have not actually scouted this throne yet, and we're not sending our pretender in, mostly because there's a bunch of crossbowmen, and I don't think we'll need our pretender. I'm also not sure that our mages are really actually going to do all that much. We just have our Mouflons set to attack rear. You know, we have our crossbowmen as far forward, and they're just going to start shooting right away. And then we are going to spam out. Ooh, I didn't even change it. Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah, we could actually cast Greater Fire Elemental, though we would chew through more gems. But yeah, I think the Fire Elementals are probably going to lag behind. This is probably just a waste of gems, but yeah, we're gonna make some fire elementals. Judging from the last throne, we're bringing even more against this one, so unless we run into a really nasty mage, we should be okay. Don't have a ton in the way of magic weapons, although we do have a few on guard commander here that'll be covering at least one of our mages. And if elementals are probably the most likely danger from the throne mages, and at least our fire elementals will provide some magic damage. So it's really more of like a safety valve. But there's a good chance they're just going to lag behind and burn our own troops, as sometimes happens with fire elementals. Still, we're throwing a lot at this throne, so pretty high confidence we're going to come away with this without too many losses. And then we will probably build a fort on top of that. We are, saving money for a fort. Also, we just don't have enough infrastructure, so we can't actually spend our money, despite our capital being very unhappy. And this is just gonna, it's gonna get worse. So we definitely need more territory. We also need more infrastructure. We are building a palisade here. Also, something of note, these witches are disease healers, which is actually kind of relevant because our mages, you can see, they're not happy fellows. So we have quite a few mages that are diseased. Here's an Earth 3, a cap only. So we're gonna send her over and try to heal this disease. And we're probably actually just going to spread some of these witches out. We don't want to build too many of them because I don't think they're going to be super useful for us, but they will be useful forgers and maybe site searchers and swarm casters in a pinch. But we'll probably switch over to our regular mages. That's why we're building a palisade here. We don't really need to mass produce these witches. And then we're probably just going to build another fort here. I think I've just given up on the resource situation, and we won't be able to recruit that many units out of any one fort. But kind of feels like we really just want to push more mages out. I'm a bit late. Okay, I'm pretty late on that. But better late than never. So we're going to try to put up a lot more forts so we can really start to push out a lot of our cheaper research mages, really take better advantage of our Magic 3 scales and really get our research going. We're still recruiting as many troops as we can in the capital. Yeah, bummer. We're wasting commander point. I really am in too many games at this point. But yeah, we're still going to focus on the Archons and then, of course, Mouflon and then, Crossbowmen. We're getting some more Shackled Mages here this turn. And I think, an Oppressor over here. Still getting a few more of these Cyclops soldiers. They are magic damage and they are quite a bit of damage. So, anyway. They are expensive. Every time I recruit them, I do wonder if I'm wasting money. On the other hand, every time I don't recruit them, I'm wondering, am I wasting an opportunity to be able to recruit more, right? Because you can only recruit 3 per fort per turn, so it's not like you can quickly mass them up if all of a sudden you have a need for them. I think that more or less covers turn 24. And I almost forgot, since this is the start of year 2, it is time for a tour of the F keys. We have 21 provinces currently, which is not bad. That's completely healthy. It's not amazing, but definitely a position we could win from. Our site searching has been okay, not fantastic. A lot of ones here, though, especially for water, it's hard. It's kind of hard for us in a lot of paths to search at anything but one. But still, quite a bit of site searching. Like I said, not a lot of earth gems, which definitely is a problem for kind of what we're thinking about doing. We have had pretty good luck with independent mages. We've got, if we include the throne, 4 different sites that allow for independent mage recruitments, which is pretty fantastic for the late age. It's a little unfortunate that 2 of them were in the same province, so they're going to compete with each other. I think both of them are slow to recruit as well. So, that's not great. But you can't really complain about getting an astral mage you can wire in for nature. We don't really have nature access normally. And also this is pretty powerful, more powerful astral access. Yeah, and actually they can random into another path of astral. So definitely some good mages for us to get a hold of. And then, of course, we've talked about these witches. They're okay. If we didn't have the other ones, these might be a lot more important, but pretty low path and can't really bring them into communions or anything like that. And then, we've got Adepts of the Silver Order, which are solid mages. We have communions that we can wire, all these astral mages into, so that's all very nice. Definitely less sites overall than what I'm used to, but this is late age, so there's just less magic sites out there. And then we'll take a quick look at graphs. A brief dip here, probably due to independence at some point, but overall headed in the correct direction. Not like huge gains, but nothing really to complain about there yet. Let's see, forts, couple forts. We really are kind of low on forts actually overall looking at this. We do have, I think, 2 under construction, so we're going to double our fort numbers. Well, not quite, because these are constructed forts, but still, we're going to be doubling the number of forts we have constructed since the start of the game. So that'll help, but I think overall we are a little light on forts for Phlegra specifically. Income, going to track, provinces pretty closely. Not sure what this dip is about. Probably the population loss that we had, if I had to guess. Gem income, like I said, not as high as we would like it. It's never as high as you would like it, but moving in the correct direction. Research starting to pick up a little bit, and we would like to get some boosters online as soon as possible. And of course, only looking at your own graphs, it is kind of difficult to get a sense without being able to compare against other people. That's why I often don't really even look at these graphs myself, unless I am able to get a hold of other people's graphs. Then Dominion, rarely interesting. It's at least stable, going up. That's good. Army size, had some losses here, but overall moving in the right direction. And of course, ascension points. We do have one. Actually, it looks like Atlantis. No, this has got to be, Ulm is in the lead currently, though probably not too relevant. Speaking of not too relevant, here are all the heroes. Most of them are dead, so kind of a split here. Quite a few elves up there, a few... Oh, no, this is a mercenary from Vettiheim. Though, interestingly, it does look like Ulm is kind of leaning somewhat into these thugs. I'm not really sure. Hochmeister? I don't know. A heavily armored knight commander, so it does look like these guys are probably being used as thugs, because there's quite a few kills here for a human commander unit, and they're not going to get that unless they're actually getting sent into combat. So that is actually kind of interesting. And then here are all of our pretenders. Only Midgard has been defeated so far. And of course, we talk about research all the time, but here it is. There are no global enchantments yet. Our gem income feels low, but again, I'm not used to playing late age, so this probably isn't as bad as it feels to me, but one of these earth gems we are getting from our capital, and we have done a good amount of searching for it. So we found one earth gem, which, like I said, is not, we didn't want this to be the lowest of our gems. I mean, aside from death gems, which we don't have any paths for yet. We have one item in the magic item treasury, a flame of staff focus. Can't remember if we forged this or not. This is a relevant weapon for us. Probably actually should use these a little bit more. The 25% boost to the range in combat is pretty nice for a lot of spells, particularly Incinerate. And it's not that expensive. Also provides magic damage. Ideally, you're not meleeing with this, but it's not the worst weapon. The fact that it's two-handed is, again, not great for melee. Here are the throne claims. Nobody's really close. Ulm has the most, Marignon has one, and we have one. Probably there's other thrones that people are sitting on, but haven't claimed yet. And that concludes our tour of the F keys. I will catch you guys again at the start of year 3.